An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? You're stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 117. I'm Aaron Pollier.
I'm Darlene.
And we watched, on Tubi, The Beast from the Beginning of Time from 1965. Now, go ahead.
You want to talk about that one? That it's really was produced in 1965, but wasn't ever released?
It was shown around. And supposedly it wasn't released until the 80s. But it was filmed in the 60s, so it does fit within the core idea of Earth versus Soup.
It's black and white and poorly filmed.
Very poorly filmed.
Blurry and...
The reason why it's poorly filmed is that this was a project done by a person named Tom Leahy, who is the writer, director, producer, and he plays the creature in this.
Oh, does he?
Yes, he does. It's labeled as Tom Strong, but he actually is that. He is the creature. But it's kind of like a passion project, but it was also funded by a local television station in Wichita. So,
Wichita, Kansas?
I guess. Wichita. But this movie is incredibly low budget. It's filmed with like television equipment, things that would be used in the television studio.
It's filmed at a school or a university.
It's actually filmed at the television station as well.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. The money that got raised for this movie was raised by employees of the television station donating to it. And it had like a budget of $10,000.
So this is UHF.
I mean, this is... Yeah, it's Weird Al making Conan the Librarian. If you guys don't know UHF, the Weird Al movie, which is an amazing film from the 1980s, please watch that, because I'm going to digress then, damn it, because I'm going to talk about UHF for a moment. We're the last generation to truly understand why that movie is funny and what UHF really was about. Because we're kind of the last generation before cable really took over, and there was a difference between VHF and UHF stations. You know, the VHF stations were generally the big network stations, and UHF stations were local.
You had 3 of them or 4, depending on your city.
Yeah, and then you had like maybe 10 UHF stations that they had. If you were lucky, and they were generally little local stations that were always doing low budget stuff, but had like lots of local stories on it. So, and
usually after 10 o'clock, there was static
or creature features.
Yeah.
Because in UHF, the Weird Al movie, that's a lot of what they're doing is that the station that Weird Al takes over in that show, in that movie, is only showing basically old creature features all the time as repeats. And then he decides, no, I'm going to do some, original shows so we can actually get funding and like advertisers and things like that. And they start making their own original programming and original movies. You have Conan the Librarian, Gandhi 2,
yeah, and
No More Mr. Nice Guy.
This is where when we were younger, we were watching these
mostly. Now WGN out of Chicago was a VHS station, believe it or not. But I used to watch UHF stations all the time growing up, because that's where you got like the PBS stations that would play like Doctor Who late at night.
That's where I watched my Doctor Who.
But you'd get these weird things that now and then you'd get these strange passion projects that some local filmmaker decided to make a weird ass movie.
It's like TV being NPR.
No, that's PBS. Those are the PBS stations.
Yes, but they
UHF stations aren't like that. UHF stations are more like, here is...
You would have a lot of those fundraisers, though.
For UHF stations?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes if they needed to get funding to keep the generators on to power the power the broadcast
Or
tower.
even their lights on.
But it would be more like, I mean, there isn't a good... What's the best comparison these days? It would be kind of like this podcast.
Yeah.
It would be somebody...
It'd be
like a small group of people coming together and working on original programming for their local community. Now, our local community on Earth vs. Soup and on This Week in Geek is obviously geek culture, and Earth vs. Soup specifically 50s and 60s. But since we have a worldwide range with these podcasts, obviously the community, quote unquote, is
not just a small
it's
town,
not a small area, it's a small interest group, rather.
Small interest group.
So it's wonderful when you see these strange passion projects that end up popping up out of UHF stations, and this is just one of them. It's just one of them. So it was funded. It was an incredibly cheap budget. So all the camera work is done by television people. It's the production quality is television, not film, which I think actually helps this movie rather than harming it.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. The the film itself is not
It's TV.
Yeah, it's TV film, which would be
I don't know.
kind of different than
It's just lower quality. So let's talk about the film, and then we can get back into like what works and what doesn't, because like I said, there's things that generally you might say don't work in this movie but actually help the film in the end. So we have an archaeological dig somewhere near which I shouldn't say archaeological. It is not.
It's supposed to be in the Southwest.
It is actually like a fossil dig. It's near Wichita. They filmed everything in Wichita.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be like in New Mexico or something like that, because it's digging up Native American.
No, it is not Native American.
Well, that's what he thought the guy was an
And
Indian.
Native Americans were more than just in the Southwest.
Yes, I know, but it's supposed to be, even though you can tell that
They say one time it's in the Southwest of the United States.
Yes.
But they filmed in Wichita.
we know they filmed in Wichita.
So they find a human hand at this like freaking fossil dig.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about a skeletonized human hand. It's a human hand.
Hopefully it was a mannequin and not somebody's
And
hand.
it's sticking out of rock. And I said, it's not skeletonized at all in my notes. The lead scientist tells migrant workers to dig fast. Now, and get this guy, like, Andre. And it seems like he's just being really rude, because the character actually is incredibly rude to everybody around him. We're getting a little bit of a flashback to our last episode with characters that are just awful to each other in this. Well, he ends up ordering them to dig fast and gather a whole bunch of rocks from around this body because he wants to analyze them. All right, so we find out that then we go into the credits, like, creature, the beast from the beginning of time, dun dun dun. We end up going to this office, and I think this is, oh my god, what are the characters?
It's Ford.
Ford.
Barston and Dr. John Crawford, and it's supposed to be at the museum.
Okay, it's the museum.
That's funding the archaeology dig.
Yes. So they're at this office. Barston is a pompous administrator who is very full of himself, correct?
Yes.
He's
I would say
talking
that.
to Dr. Crawford, and Dr. Crawford is, I would say, arguably the strongest actor in this movie. And he actually comes across as a 1950s science fiction movie leading man in this, because he's always got a smile. His dictation is very clear. He looks like he knows what he's talking about.
I thought that was supposed to be the character too, because he's supposed to be the one of the heads of this museum.
1965 or not, this movie does feel like it came from 54, 55.
And remember, surprisingly, these people that are playing this, you don't see their names anywhere else.
Most of them are in very few things, or they're in television productions from Wichita. Like there's like a beauty queen from the Wichita area that's in this, and like that's it.
And I'm surprised that they're holding their lines, especially that line that Ford Barson does.
Yeah. So there's even our leading actor, he was in like 3 things, and it was just TV, and this. But so they talk about the lead, the lead scientist on the dig, and his name is
Professor Bernard
Maury.
And I keep calling him Murphy, so I apologize now if I do it.
And since Darlene was calling him Murphy during the movie, I sometimes in my notes have Murphy and Maury mixed up too now. Maury is talked about, and he seems to be, at least the director, the museum director, this Ford Barston. He thinks that Maury is too consumed by science, that he's never able to remember anybody's name. He always talks down to everybody, and he's kind of tired of them.
And he's worried about the person that's working with him.
Yeah, because he thinks that Maury is going to drive everybody away because he's such a jerk.
And that guy was Randall, right?
Yes.
Was that his last name or the first name?
Yes. And
yes. Well,
I don't know. So we end up having, like, there's a couple really funny lines.
You're nothing, Ford. Have another drink.
Yeah. He's like, what he's bitched about, like, my physique. You know, what's wrong with my physique? And yeah, the guy's like, nothing, Ford. Just have another drink. And because Ford Barston's kind of slightly overweight.
Yeah, so straight faced.
It was really funny. Out of all the supposed comedy in this movie, I would say that actually cracked me up, because it was delivered with such surgical care and
so just not neither one of them laughed or cringed or anything.
No, it was straight face. It was completely
totally
dry.
Straight
There's
face.
nothing wrong. Have another drink.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was great. So we have 2 assistants come in, and they're like Elise and Branston, right? I don't know.
Elise is the
beauty queen.
Beauty queen, and I thought it was her. Yeah, I think it's Hanson.
So they're gonna all leave for the dig. The scientist that's Dr. Crawford is leaving for the dig with these 2 assistants. And is the museum guy going along with
the museum guy is going to go. The 2 others are not.
But they are there.
No, they were at the museum later.
Okay, all right.
They weren't at the dig.
All right. Fine.
She was just coming in to tell her brother, I think. I didn't get her relationship, who she was a sister of.
For longtime listeners of Earth versus Soup, you may recognize the fact that a movie is confusing in its spatial relationships between scenes when we can't tell where characters are and get confused if they're involved in a certain situation because the filming is so poor that you can't tell which actor it is and or what scene it's supposed to be in. Is this the office at the museum, or is it the office at the university near the dig site?
Is it?
You can't.
Well,
you can't tell.
You could tell the dig site. It's in a doggone tent.
Yeah, the dig
with
site,
water running down it.
But when it's nighttime, is it the dig site, or did they take it to the storage area? Like, again,
oh God,
it's like,
no, I
don't know. So
Okay.
longtime listeners may understand that this movie is slightly confusing. It is slightly confusing. That doesn't mean it's automatically bad, because slightly confusing movies can be a joy to watch because it's just funny. This is more.
And I will say they did introduce the characters. I just wasn't writing down fast enough who was who.
We go back to the dig site, and Maury is a dick, yelling at people, calling them idiots. This man has no redeeming qualities at all. So the body that they've excavated is intact and is talked about as though it is some sort of primitive man. And this is where I had to pause the movie and I go, Darlene,
that was a
hold
16
on.
million, 12 feet of shell?
It's not 16 million, it's 60 million. They get
that
it was in Cretaceous shale. So they got the date of the Cretaceous period wrong. Okay. It's in shale. Okay, fine. Shale means that it was
swamp.
In slow moving water. Shale is deposited in slow moving water. Fine. And I wrote down, dude, you're a dinosaur expert. First of all, that's the reason why you're out there, right? You're a paleontologist. You dig a guy out of 60 million year old shale. 60, 65 million, it doesn't matter. You got the date wrong, but I don't care. Okay, whatever. That's not human. That's not human. Why are you calling it a human? A primitive human, but a human.
Prehistoric human is what they called it.
Yeah, but he's 60 million years old.
And prehistoric, maybe that's the reason why I thought they were talking about digging up a Native American, was because of prehistoric. They kept calling it a prehistoric human.
Yes. And I thought it was, and when you said that, I'm like, no, they're not being that disrespectful. Like, anyway,
I wouldn't put it past that character to be Murray.
Maury. He's just a giant dick anyway. So yeah, he could have started calling people like, primitives or whatever.
They talked.
Who knows?
In that conversation in the office, there was talk about him being dirty.
Oh, that he never showers. Yeah, that's the implication, that he never showers. And then like Dr. Crawford says, yes, he does. It's just that when he's out on a dig, he doesn't care about that, because where is he going to wash? There aren't showers out on a dig. Like, so Crawford was defending him in some ways, like going, dude, you're Barston, you asshole, you're completely out of of touch with what a dig site is. Correct? Like that's part of this bitchiness between those characters.
John always comes off as the negotiator between
He's
people.
the reasonable human being until it starts getting into the science of the movie, which is all nonsense. All nonsense. This is full-blown 1950s sci-fi guy in a lab coat just spouting complete garbage.
If I saw a hand, which was a mannequin.
Yeah, but it's a human hand, right?
A human hand, because their feet, his feet are definitely human feet too.
Okay, we see the monster later. He's human. He might be like a Neanderthal-like human, but he's human.
But he's not even that far enough Neanderthal either. No. Makeup.
No, he's not.
And he's
like a halfway point between Neanderthal and man.
Their
and
feet were wider and.
Darlene, move on. What were you going to say?
You made me forget it.
I made you forget it.
I forgot it.
You rambled.
Yes, I did.
Anyway, well, let's go back to the plot. There's a completely unnecessary scene at the airport where the travelers are picked up and they're told that they're not going to be sleeping at the dig site, that there's a hotel that they're going to be set up in town because the dig site is fairly primitive. There's only tents and like pickaxes. And I thought for sure there was going to be product placement for a local Wichita hotel. There isn't. I'm like, okay, that could have been funding right there, but there wasn't.
Before that, you had the black. Was that before this or after this that the blackmail took place?
It's after this, Darlene.
Oh, okay.
Whenever you question that something happened yet, it's always...
I was questioning where we were in my notes. It's
usually the next scene. This is where we learn about the age of the creature being 60 million years old, that he was surrounded in shale.
12 feet of shale.
They're honestly surprised about how well preserved the creature is, i.e., he's still perfectly preserved. There's nothing wrong with him. He's not like a fossil. We
know from perfectly preserved in today's archaeology would be the guy that was found in the Alps.
He's not perfectly preserved. He was still
No,
a freaking
but
mummy,
that's
and they
what
even reference the fact that they pull mummies out of Native American graves. They talk about grave robbing in this movie. They pulled mummies out of Native American graves all across the southwest of the United States. We're not surprised to find this guy, but he's not a mummy.
No,
he's at best a fresh corpse.
That was what I was going for. This I could have seen this as a time travel situation.
Really? Okay, go on.
That
Explain.
somebody from
Explain.
this time
Okay. Went back in time?
ended up being in that time.
But how do you explain him being 60 million years in the ground and perfectly fine?
I don't.
Like, if you wanted to say, oh, it was a teleporter accident, and this dude just got beamed into the middle of shale. Like, it's just random. Sure, okay, maybe I buy that. That's fine. But this guy is, like, perfectly preserved. So I'm going to skip 1,000 scenes here, because I'm going to talk about why he's perfectly preserved. We get the educated scientist explanation from the 1950s that they just pull random crap out of the air and say, it makes sense to us. Supposedly, this dude got hit by lightning, and it stopped his metabolic processes. So when he fell into the water to fall into the depositing shale 60 million years ago, he didn't age, die, or have any kind of cellular decay because he was struck by lightning.
But he had a hole in his head
from the lightning hit.
From the lightning hit, and that's where they're supposed to take the stuff from to identify his age.
And again, what? He was hit by lightning, and that made him live to be 60 million years old.
And you'd have to have from what I understand, you have to have marrow, don't you?
No, you can't. Carbon dating for 60 million years is impossible.
Thank you.
You're not doing that. Like, at the outer edge, you're going to maybe have like a couple 100,000 years. And that's at the very outer edge.
Because it has to deal with the
carbon decay of 14 carbon 14 decay.
But they do take the time from the layers, though.
What? No, from the shale. Are you talking about shale? No, you do mineralogical radioactive decay rather than carbon 14. Carbon 14 is for organic. And remember, they were testing his organic body, and they're like, "Oh, it's 60 million years old." No. Well, and they don't mention that they did carbon 14 dating, so they could have done something else. Like, maybe they did take like a piece of skull out of his head and decided to do some weird calcium decay something or other that actually has like a range able to accurately predict out to 60 million years, but that's never really explained. It just doesn't seem realistic. But back to the plot. Where was I? We have one of these guys that was let go from the dig because he was a dick, was at the airport. He saw the people getting picked up, so he followed them back to the dig in his pickup truck.
Yep.
Okay.
And you called him the redneck.
It's
and
redneck.
That's all I know him as too. And he's not important to know except to call him a redneck.
I don't know his name. Is his name Cletus?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Cletus Henderson. That's the guy's name.
Okay, so
Cletus.
who's Ellis's
Doesn't matter.
I don't know. Yeah.
The assistant to Maury was Randall. His name was Creighton Randall. Okay. That's what I do know. Okay. So after everyone gets dropped off at the hotel, the guy in the pickup truck, Cletus, goes out and says, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And right before this, we had a scene with Maury and Randall and how they're going to hide the body.
Well, that's
because
Murray's.
What?
That's Murray's idea of trying to get money, is to put him on a show.
Yes, but it's also that finding a body in 60 million year old shale is going to look really dumb to everyone. Like, it comes across that they actually understand how dumb this is, and they want to hide it from the museum guys. So A, they can make money off of it by putting them on a show, but B, also that they don't want to have their funding yanked because no one will believe this.
So Murray blackmails.
Not Murray. Cletus blackmails Murray into
Yes,
saying,
but
hey, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to get cut in on all this action.
he goes 3-way. But before that,
Okay, there's a 3-way
Murray blackmails
Randall?
Randall about some kind of girl in California
Does
for
not
him
matter.
to shut up.
Does not matter. Does not matter, right? Like, yes, that does happen, Darlene. Thank you for bringing it up. I'm not like discounting what you're trying to say about what's happening in the plot. It's just that there is so much in this movie that just is pointless. It adds color, I guess, but it really has no bearing on the rest of the story. So Cletus comes out. Okay, he gets cut in on the deal because he has a gun as well. So he's obviously threatening them with like physical violence. They load up the body into this pickup truck and go and hide it somewhere, right? Where do they hide it?
In the warehouse.
Warehouse, somewhere.
That looks like the tent.
Okay. So they pack the body up, label it as tools, and hide it from the museum people. Rain starts to fall, and the creature wakes up. And we really don't see what happens, right? Except that the monster wakes up. I think there's a scream. I was probably writing down notes about how like the redneck was awful and just threatening people here because I don't really remember. Like there's about 20 seconds.
And
where I'm
Murray
like,
gave
what?
Randall a gun.
Yes, because he wanted Randall to be able to defend himself
From the redneck.
From Cletus. So the museum guys arrive the next morning, and Cletus Henderson is found pinned to his pickup truck with a shovel through his chest.
Yes.
And I was like,
wow!
this just
went from
escalated.
0 to...
This just escalated because here we have something in the 1960s that's feeling like a mid-50s creature feature. And yeah, there might be like a body or something like that. But then this is a man pinned to his pickup truck with a shovel through his chest.
Through him.
Okay.
Yes.
That's escalated quickly.
0 to 60.
They're kind of scared now, and they end up finding Randall suffering from shock, yelling about how he needs to rebury the body. Okay. I don't know. Randall
It's
is
got
going
to be buried. It's got to be buried. It's got to be buried. And they send him medical.
They find the body again. I guess it's just back on the slab of wherever they were hiding it.
No, I thought it was in the bushes, but that's...
All right. Doesn't matter. I guess I was probably writing down notes again that like, see, some of these plot points happen so quickly that it's difficult to keep in your head what the hell happened. What just happened?
And it's not like some movies that we've watched that everything like the Hammer films, that everything is interesting in the 5 seconds that it takes place. These are non-essential. They're not.
Everything feels boring when the plot point happens. It's
so
not
you're
like
not
it's
paying attention to the movie. So
you're writing notes like us. We're trying to write notes, and like 5 seconds will happen where they're like, "Oh yeah, here's the body. It's in the bushes or it's in the warehouse." It doesn't matter because it's so unimportant to the plot, I guess. That.
But the next scene is a news reporter.
Yes.
So we have time that just jumped.
So, but I have to like actually, yeah. There is this television reporter. There's time has moved on. You're right.
He's Randall is found guilty of with the worst thing that's ever happened in this area, gruesome murder.
Yeah, Randall is like, yeah, the murder is pinned on him because he's crazy and he's going to be committed.
He's committed to an institute, and they're going to send him closer to home.
Yeah, so now there's like a dinner with the museum staff. They don't know how they're going to handle the implications of the find because they now know about this prehistoric man. They know about the murder that supposedly Randall has done, but I think at this point, Crawford doesn't believe Randall did it. Because Maury's like, no, Maury's still alive.
No, it was the museum director that didn't think
Randall had it in him.
Randall had it.
But Maury's still around. Like, just Maury wasn't there at the time that all of this happened. And no one wants to listen to Maury because Maury's a jerk.
Maury is saved because from the implication of the murder because he was picking up these two from the hotel.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Like, and no one really wants to get Maury's opinion about anything because he's just such a jerk. So yeah. Anyway, they don't know how they're going to handle the implications of all of this. They're trying to explain how the body was so well preserved. This is where the lightning stopping the metabolic processes is brought out. The creatures seem to wake up and go back dormant for some reason. And
when lightning hits.
They said basically with lightning hit the creature and woke him up for a time, and then he went back dormant. So we again back at like this warehouse / back at the museum. The creature reanimates again. Is it hit by lightning again?
Lightning is taking place. There's a storm again.
Because I didn't think he
and
got
this is where Dr. Murray quit and went back to the museum to pick his stuff up.
Pick his shit up. Yeah, because they well, did he quit or was he fired?
No, he quit. He says, I'm done with this.
Well, good for him at this point, really. He is a jerk, but this is crazy.
Because he made the director so angry that he just the director insulted Murray, but didn't say anything that wasn't true.
Yeah, I know that. But so the creature reanimates and kills Maury by like throwing a box on him.
No, it was supposed to be a filing cabinet.
It's a box.
It's a box.
It's a box.
But it's a filing.
And so I wrote down the creature is now loose. The museum guys go out to the place where the body was stored, and the storm is still raging. They find the body gone. But they also find
the janitor dead.
They find the night watchman dead, broken back on the stairs, which wasn't that gruesome. But then they find Maury's office is trashed and find Maury's arm just ripped off in this office. And I'm like, oh, really? That's ripped off? Oh my God, they're going there again. Like this is suddenly again.
So they track the blood.
They track the blood and
with
the bloody footprints.
With a guy that is carrying, that tore off an arm. Okay? I would have got the crap out of there and called the police.
They're like, hey, we need to follow these bloody footprints.
I can understand them not calling because this is one of those things that was the Chekhov gun. His phone went dead while Murray was talking.
Yeah.
The lights went out and
all the power's out. So yeah,
the phone went out.
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
phone still works at that time without power. So it was like the power lines with the phone lines went dead.
Something has completely gone down. But yeah, they're like, hey, let's follow these bloody footprints.
I would have been like,
this thing just ripped an arm off.
I'm going to get the police. I am not stepping into this shit.
This is Star Trek First Contact, where they're like, you want me to go into the engine room and puncture the flesh melting gas bucket? Sorry, no, send in McGillicuddy. He'll do it. I'm not going in there.
Is that the line that comes
No, it's not McGillicuddy. It's
what's the guy that's this is just a cast member.
Yeah,
that's
that scene.
And he's just looking at
the poor red shirt, where Picard's like, our plan is to go in here and puncture the flesh melting gas canisters.
And
the guy's like, holy crap, I'm gonna die. And yeah, it's that in this scene. Like, are you serious? The monster that just rips people's arms off, you want us to go chase?
And they did find
Maury's body stuffed into a drawer.
I will tell you, it actually with the black and white,
it was okay.
It looked like the arm was tore off.
The makeup was bad, but
the black
worked
and white
okay. It worked
and the
okay.
fuzziness of the film helped it.
So we get another classic 1950s creature feature with the creature attacking a couple necking in a car by night. Like,
you forgot that they see the creature.
Yeah.
And he's he's eating something on the floor.
Okay.
And I was like, is he eating the doggone arm?
I don't know. Like, okay, so he goes out and attacks a couple that's necking. He runs off.
Teenagers.
Yeah, and I guess he injures the guy.
In a Corvette that's convertible.
Yeah, I think it's a Corvette.
After a rainstorm.
Yeah, but
why would you have a Corvette? At least, never mind.
I don't know. I think it was a Corvette. I didn't look too closely.
It was
It was a pretty car.
It was a pretty car without a top.
Yeah.
After a rainstorm.
Okay, but the girl did have a top on, thankfully, because this movie is from 1965. I think the creature injures the guy, but doesn't kill him. The woman is able to run away. She's able to flag down the police because the creature runs away when he hears the police sirens. The cops end up finding the creature and shoot him down. I'm like, okay, that's pretty okay. Cops, I get it.
Somebody also already shot the creature too.
Yeah, I think it was probably Maury that shot him.
No, it was one of the two guys.
Who cares?
The doctor,
Who cares?
Dr. Crawford, or the.
So the cops shoot the creature again, and they're like, "Man, he's just taking bullets. Nothing's harming him." And this is where Crawford's like, "Yeah, bullets aren't gonna hurt him because he's getting all of his energy from the lightning.
He's gonna slow down.
He'll slow down when his energy runs out, like he's got a goddamn battery or something." And so they just kind of keep surrounding him until he slows down and falls over. And I guess this is at the museum because this is where Crawford walks over to a skeleton of a stegosaurus, breaks off one of the spines like any kind of asshole would do
at the tail.
Yeah, I'm like,
and it
dick?
Looked so cardboard.
Oh, it was just foam. And then he stakes the creature through the heart like a vampire with a stegosaurus spine.
And then it goes to the end, or is it?
Yes, the end, or is it? So,
because you see the creature move, start breathing.
I love and hate this movie. I love and hate this movie, and the reason is because this is what I love about it. Is the plot is incredibly dumb.
The science is incredibly dumb.
Obviously the science doesn't work, but what works in this movie is that it's so ludicrous, it's actually kind of funny. To me, I think that's what works.
And it is a project of love.
Yes, it's a project of love. It's not like it doesn't seem like it's an ego trip. It honestly does not.
No, it's not a grain.
What?
Isn't it Brendan Breen?
Like the director, the only time he's on screen is when he's the creature and he's under heavy makeup and is always getting the hell beat out of him, like with bullets and things like that. You never really see the creature really tearing anybody apart. Just throwing boxes and throwing somebody down the stairs. So it's not like it's an ego project. It doesn't seem that way. It seems like this is actually love of the genre being put onto screen. And people were doing the best with what they had available with an incredibly low budget. So,
and you want to talk about the incredibly low?
I already said $10,000. $10,000, and they raised it through like just people donating that were workers at this television station. So, what works in this movie is the fact that a lot of just regular people loved the genre that much to donate money to make a stupid creature feature film that was 10 years out of date feeling. And I respect that. Is the movie good? No, it isn't. I don't think there's, outside of the fact that this movie got made, which I think is a positive. I'm glad it did. I honestly am. The plot doesn't work. The acting is generally poor, except for Dr. John Crawford and the museum director in their introduction scene, which is so well-timed that it feels out of place for the rest of the movie. The comedy in it is just, it's snappy. Like, it feels like it was almost written by somebody completely different than the rest of the movie because it was so funny. Like, that's the one scene, Darlene, out of all this entire movie we were both laughing at, and not ironically laughing. Like, we enjoyed it. It was funny.
Well, we also did a laugh about the ramming, is the scene of the shovel through the
shovel. We were
like,
whoa, that was pretty intense. Like, this is 11 now. This has gone up to 11. Normally, you don't see a man staked through the chest by a shovel to his own pickup truck.
Even though the guy deserved it.
Yeah, he deserved it, but Normally, you don't see that kind of action
No,
in the
you
1960s. Yeah. So we enjoyed that. Yeah, like some of the special effects were fine. I won't say they really worked, but
I
they're
think why they
fine.
worked was because of the graininess of
The low resolution of
the
black and white.
black and white.
So what didn't work in this movie? Okay, what we should actually say what stood out as not working in this movie, because I don't want to be too down on this movie, because obviously, again, this is a project of love with an incredibly low budget that was done clearly for love of the genre.
It wasn't in the Southwest.
It wasn't in the Southwest. The science is bad.
Woo!
Bad.
Woo! We won't even
Like-
say bad. It's just
I'll hand wave the fact that there's like a creature that has somehow survived in suspended animation for 60 million years. Fine, whatever. It's science fiction. I'll go with it. But it's not going to be a human. It's not going to be reanimated by lightning or paused in animation because of lightning.
it would have been in a tube.
Like, that's what I said. This would have been really cool if the only reason it was in suspended animation was like, yeah, it's an alien. Let's tie it into Doctor Who. It's a Solarian from the actual Cetaceous, and it's in like a hibernation tube. Something like that. And the creature wakes up, it's confused, it's surrounded by mammals. Mammals are just these little rat things that it remembers.
Wolves.
And now all these warm-blooded mammals are like around it. It's awful. It's scared.
They smell.
Yeah, like,
Because
okay,
you got
I get it.
Murphy there.
Murphy doesn't bathe.
Not Murphy.
Murray.
I did it again.
There are ways to make this a little better. Sorry for Darlene coughing again. We're not sick. Anyway, yeah, there are ways of like that could have made this film a little more interesting and science fiction-y than it did. As a movie that is supposed to be, it feels like a tribute to the genre. You would think that the person who wrote it, Tom Leahy, would have actually thought it out a little more, but maybe they just didn't have the budget to build like a hibernation tube or things like that, because this movie really is incredibly low budget. I think that you do see the budget on screen. I think the budget was spent on renting these cameras from the television station, because obviously the television station isn't just going to give its own employees the cameras to take out into the field for no reason at all.
They might have,
but I think that some of it was probably rental of equipment in general. Let's hire some actors for,
because this TV thing was supposed to air this, wasn't it?
That wasn't what was implied.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it did, but regardless, I think like that skeleton at the end, the Stegosaurus skeleton, was probably built out of the budget of this film, because it looked really kind of cheesy, but I can see that actually costing a few $100s at the least. I can see that. I'm willing to bet that Leahy actually paid the people that appeared in this film a decent wage for appearing in it.
Or they could have actually
volunteered.
Volunteered.
What I'm saying is, I don't think he would have screwed over the people that appeared in it, because I bet you these people actually donated originally to the movie, and they just said, "Hey, let me get my donation back out of it to star in it or whatever, or be an actor in it." Because
how many of our today's YouTube shows do they actually get paid?
I'm sure.
That's
The YouTube people, like, I
that's-
mean, it's mostly Patreon and things like that. Like,
You know what I'm
I don't
saying?
know. I'm sure
you
that
got the Star Trek offshoot that the
Star Trek Continues. That was fantastic.
The fan base
They raised money though, and I'm sure those, because I mean, they even got Grant Imahara to play Sulu. I'm sure they actually paid the actors, maybe not a lot, but they probably did pay them. I don't know offhand. I'm not going to make a claim. I'm just saying, I assume
these probably volunteered to play.
I'm sure there was volunteers. I'm just saying that I don't think that I think the director actually treated his employees on this film properly.
Good.
That's what it comes across as, because it didn't look like any of the people were just miserable filming this.
No. I will say that they did. They really, like I said, I actually said it. This is a work of love.
Yeah.
Not just by the director, but by all the characters.
So we've talked about what worked and what didn't. I honestly don't think a ton of stuff fell into the category of didn't work, because the movie is made by amateurs, and when you judge it on those merits, there may be one shot in this movie where I thought, boy, even an amateur should think about this, because it was the first shot in the movie, and they were like looking at people digging with like a long lens, like a long focus, and there's like Maury's head is actually at the bottom of the shot, kind of bobbing around as he's moving, and you're like, is that a mistake? Because it just, is that somebody's head that you're just seeing like the top of their head moving through? Is there some sort of weird transfer happening where somebody was filming the film being projected and a person got into that shot? Like,
and they don't have the money to refilm it.
But it turns out, no, that was actually the shot, that Maury was actually at the bottom of that shot below the camera. And when they like close in the shot, you see that he's actually there working at a table. But it was like, is this a mistake? Maybe that would be one of the things I would say doesn't really work even as an amateur film. Like, it just felt really, really bad, that shot. But am I going to recommend this movie? No. But not because it's shit, but because it is very amateur. I like a lot of the aspects of the movie. See, it's I don't recommend it, asterisk. Is this a bad movie? Not really. It's just not a good movie either. And it's really cheap. And I generally don't judge a movie when it is cheap. For being cheap. Like, if there's something that just truly doesn't work, yeah, obviously
it's better than Creeping Terror.
Yeah? Really? Okay, so you're saying it is better than Creeping Terror. As a plot of a movie, yes. Agreed.
Even the acting is better than...
But the quality of the filmmaking, the actual like direction, production of this movie is not as good as Creeping Terror. I think it's a better movie than Creeping Terror because it feels a little more honest than Creeping Terror did.
Creeping Terror is like the lowest, besides your propaganda ones.
Oh, I hate those propaganda movies. God.
Propaganda ones have to just be on its own little plop.
Yeah.
Creeping Terror is still at the bottom of my scale.
Yes, but you could also see what was being filmed in Creeping Terror, where there were a lot of instances in this film where it was difficult to understand what was actually happening on the film. I'm not trying to defend Creeping Terror, and I'm not trying to like crap all over this film, because again, Creeping Terror is terrible. I would never recommend it. But this film is more like, yeah, it's not competently made, but it's made with love.
It's made with amateurs, so
yeah.
I've got to go in amateurs to make a film that is above a professionally done one is saying a lot.
I would say, again, in some aspects this movie is the production of this movie is factually worse than Creeping Terror. But I think, again, the love shines through. So I cannot shit all over this movie. I'm not going to recommend it. If you want to watch it, it's short. It's like barely an hour, over an hour long. It's not offensively bad. It's actually kind of funny. There's points in it that are actually funny and good. So I just can't recommend it because it is so amateurish that there are movies that are arguably better that we have watched. Arguably both production, plot, acting, and all that we have not recommended either. So I can't. I'm going to give credit to the filmmaker.
No, I wasn't gonna recommend it. I said no.
No, but I give credit where credit's due to the filmmaker for a passion project. I respect the hell out of this movie being made. I do. Darlene's nodding, so yes, she agrees. But I don't think there's anything else we can really talk about this movie, because our review has almost become as long as this movie. Not quite, but almost. Any final thoughts?
None whatsoever.
It's on Tubi if you want to watch it.
Yes.
It's black and white. It's blurry. It's not well lit.
And don't think you're going to adjust it out of its misery of film, because the film is that grade.
Yeah, it's just that kind of blurry and awful. But anyway, thanks for listening. I'm Aaron.
I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.